where we are coming from and where we're going, and what God was actually trying to say to us throughout the week up until today. I think I'll just do the needful. So on day one, the preacher talked about not just any location or a random decision, and the key text of consideration was Luke 19 verse 10, where we get to read the story of Jesus coming to seek the saved and the lost. On Sermon 2, the key text of consideration of chapter 28, verse 8 and 12. And I did take part in this sermon, and it's all about the finishing mission and the Great Commission, quite fast, and quite often each and every one of us can to do the mandate that you and I were both keen to partake. Lesson 3 was talking of crossing cultural barriers. First Peter 3 verse 15, and I think it highlights the various tactics that you may need to also to engage or add to the way of listening to each and every other individual that we meet, various barriers or areas of jurisdiction. Lesson 4 talked about receiving your mission. And again, the key text was 1 Peter 3:15 and 1 Corinthians 3 verse 16. I think someone talked about having a Jewish neighbor as yourself. So normally, in fact, that we just spend money knowing for a children, and mostly ways we think that we recognize superiors. Superior than others, but then Ephesians 2 verse 24 reminds us that we really need to love all the others as ourselves, inasmuch as we have already used less loves in the world, and that we are mandated to preach to those that we think come and not in the because lesson 6 talk about God's God for Ishmael before the end of time. That's Isaiah 60 verse 67. And yesterday's sermon was talking about the community transform. That's your Revelation 4 verse 1 to 12. So as we can see from lesson 1 up to lesson 7, basically what Christ is trying to show us or teach us or guide us once again, honest to you, is for us to be equipped and be ready for actually continuing to preach to those that are sick, that are lost. And at the same time, to continue doing the great mission that we are supposed to be doing. Today's sermon is entitled "The Tale of Cities." The Tale of Cities, in our main area of focus will be Revelation chapter 21. So I think we can open our Bibles to Revelation chapter 21. And I was actually loving it and so saying, first sermon. In the end, your key area or rather the area you would focus on is in Revelation chapter 21, which progress I would suggest. But nevertheless, progress in message for us. So as I was researching throughout the week to say what exactly does this whole topic or idea entail, and what does Revelation chapter 22 actually wants to highlight to us. And they notice that in as much as we are going out to the cities, preaching, doing various evangelism campaigns, as well as what we're currently doing as Harare City East, going to our catchment areas, trying to preach to people, enlightening them of the area, the time we are living in, and also what Christ entails of us and the second coming. And they noticed that even the Bible mentioned is that the harvest is plenty, but the laborers are few, which was then answered by what I found out or what I saw during the week. Quite a number of people, a significant number of people actually still doubt
that there's a heaven. Quite a number of people actually still doubt there is going to be a second coming. Most people, I don't know what they think. I think I'll read some of the responses that I got. But most people seem to think that what's going to happen here on earth is going to end here on earth. So here are some of the comments that I got, and I found them interesting. So the first one was saying, the question was tabled: do you believe that there's going to be a second coming, or that there's heaven? And one person answered, "Are you kidding? Let's be serious." The second person answered, "For me, heaven is my house, my kids, and my Lexus." The third person answered, "Heaven, I just got to hope so." Then the fourth answer came from an elderly couple, and they said, "At our age, we are looking forward to it." So from all these responses, you would find that no one was concrete sure that there's going to be a second coming or there's a heaven. All people seemed to be in doubt. But then I would like to believe the reason why we are all here is we know where we are coming from and where we're going, confirm. Unless there are doubts. But nevertheless, if there are doubts, that's why we are mainly focusing on Revelation chapter 21 today. So the fortunate part is the Bible begins with the perfect story and it ends with the perfect story. Genesis, where God created the heavens and the earth, everything was perfect. Christ lived among Adam and Eve. And then we also get the same assurance in Revelation chapter 21 that Christ is going to come back and take us home. And when he comes back, he's going to live amongst us again. Sorry, Media Center, are you able to beam Jaden? Okay. Can we read Revelation chapter 21? And it says, "And I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. And I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband." So, as I was reading through the verses under Revelation chapter 21, I noticed, yes, we normally talk of the new heaven and the new earth, the streets of gold, the long bananas, the long watermelons, chairman, the no sickness. Usually that's what we focus on. But then I found something really interesting in that that's normally not talked about. So for there to be a new heaven, rather, in new heaven, there will be no broken relationships. And I think that's going to be one of our main areas that we're going to focus on. There will be no broken relationships. And we often forget about these relationships, but then God reminds us that heaven is a place for relationships between us and Him, and all broken relationships will be fixed. God also said that He has made a provision for each and every one of us to be able to be part of the new home or new heaven and earth. All relationships in heaven will be healed. And when we are reading verse 1, John is saying he saw. There is no doubt here or him imagining, but rather he saw, which also gives us assurance that there is a heaven, new heaven and a new earth that's going to come after we have completed the mission that God has us to do. And then verse 2 and 3 say, "And John saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and He will dwell with them, and they shall be His people. And God Himself shall be with them and be their God." So, unfortunately, because of sin, there has been a separation between us and Christ. And then if you go back into the Old Testament, remember when the children of Israel were moving from Egypt to Promised Land, they moved with their temple, and Christ was among them when he was living in the temple. When God created the heavens and the earth, when God created the garden rather in Eden, Christ lived amongst Adam and Eve. But then when sin came onto this earth, a lot of chaos, and because of sin, we were separated from Christ, as highlighted in Isaiah 50, verse 1. But then, what then does the Bible say about orders? The most encouraging thing is that God even said, even the sin problem is going to work out for the glory of God. To reveal His love, grace, and goodness. So, in as much as things may be chaotic right now, and we may think that there's no hope, the imbalances that are currently there and the imperfect situations that are currently there, they're all going to work out for the better good. So, I really found this interesting and motivating, rather, to say Christ has a solid plan for us, and because of this, that's why it's going to come and take us home. Can we open our Bibles to Revelation 21, verse 5 and 6? So verse 5 says, "And he that sat upon the throne said, Behold, I make all things new. And he said unto me, Write, for these words are true and faithful. And he said unto me, It is done. I am the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. I will give unto him that is a taste of the fountain of the water of life freely." So, verse 6 says, "And he said unto me, It is done." I think Bible scholars, you can agree with me. We find the word "it is done" in the Bible, I think, 3 times, in Genesis, in John, and in Revelation. And in Genesis, when we hear the word "it's done," this is when God had created the Garden of Eden, and it was perfect. And he concluded it's done when he was the creator. And then in John, when he was the Redeemer, and in Revelation, when he's coming to save us from our sins and his chaotic environment. So the purpose of his coming is to put an end to sin and to mend the everlasting relationship that he promised us to have. In Revelation 21, verse 9 to 13, I think that's our next area of focus. We then get to see the various characteristics that are labeled, or rather that God is going to implement when he's coming to take us home. I think let's all jump to verse 12. And it says, and had a wall great and high, and had 12 gates, and the gates 12 angels, and names written thereon, which are the names of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. Verse 13. And on the east 3 gates, and on the north 3 gates, on the south 3 gates, and on the west 3 gates. So let's go back to verse 12. So as I was also studying further, particularly to those that had doubts, we then get to see how God is serious about this issue with regards to the structure and design of heaven itself. I think for those that actually watch, I know you watch movies, epic movies, you'd find that in the ancient times, in various kingdoms, usually if a king had his kingdom, right, there's only one gate to enter. What could be the reason for this? Security, right? The reason for this would be security. But then you'd find God's kingdom here, it's actually saying there'll be what? 12 gates. And of the 12 gates, there'll be what? One on the east, one on the north, one on the south, and one on east, west, north, and south, which then means everyone is invited and everyone is actually encouraged to enter. But what really caught my attention was the characteristics that are going to be written on these gates. So I think it's verse, let me just check here, verse, I think as we go down, before verse 19, I'm looking for a verse that talks of, right, I think verse 12, and had a wall great and high, and had 12 gates, and the gates 12 angels and names written thereon. So the 12 names that will be written on these gates, on the northern part, or on the top part of these gates, represent what? The various tribes. So I often joke to say, Tirano inyama zidaino tunukangalisa, but I still believe, excuse me faster, I still believe to a certain extent probably Tirinani compared to Adana, Moses, and David. Why? Panagambo Urai. Apan. Panagambo Ito had 1,000. Apan. I often joke saying that, but the good part is these guys did what they did, but then they repented and came back to Christ, which is something that probably could be lacking on our part or amongst us currently. But then it really gives hope to say these 12 tribes, tribes, they have various characteristics: murderers, liars, thieves, that is, who constitute these 12 tribes, but then their names are actually written on the walls or on the gates of heaven, which should be really a motivating factor to us to say we all stand an equal chance of entering into heaven. The Bible also is, in the Bible, numbers are also important. 12 represents what? Complete, confirm. 7 represent what? Perfection. 6 represents imperfection. 4 represents corners of the world, and then 3 represents Trinity. So to find there are 12 gates, which represents completeness, and then each gate each gate is on the 4 corners of the earth, and then on each gate the Trinity will also be represented. So I think the plea is also once again coming to us to say we should not lose hope. We should continue with the great mission and do as Christ requires of us, so that we, when He comes to take us home, will then be part of the people that is going to come to take us. If we go to verse 13 and 14. In fact, let's go to verse 19, which then talks about the foundations. So I found this once again very interesting, and it says the foundations of the wall of the city were garnished with all manner of precious stones. The first foundation was jasper, and the second was sulfur, and the third was caledonian, and the fourth an emerald. Actually, I think I've jumped also before verse 19. I think I would like to read verse, I think it's still verse 12, which talks about the foundations, the names written on the foundation. Some of us grew seeing our parents building houses, and we not understand, but we've seen how important the foundation is supposed to be. If you do a shady job, it means it's either you're going to get issues with termites, because there's a termite poison in the corner later on, or if you don't ram your foundation, your floor is going to be an issue later on. But then from the Bible, we get to see that there are 12 names that will be written on the foundation, not on the walls, but on the foundation. And these names are of the disciples. Disciples also represent various characteristics, and we have the likes of Anna John, people just talk without thinking. We have the likes of Anna Peter, people that had anger issues. We had Thomas, the doubting Thomas. We have some of the disciples that we even don't know the proper characteristics, because most of the times they'll be quiet. But then we have Judas. But then the Bible here is saying these 12 names, 12 names will be written on the foundations, on the foundation of heaven. What does this show us? It simply means, again, you and I have a chance, because these 12 names represent various characteristics that you and I probably were living in, and probably that you and I are represented. But then Christ is saying, when he comes to take us home, we are all invited, and the gates are fully open. When we then moved to Revelation chapter 22, it talks of verse 1. It says, "And he showed me a pure river of water of life, clear as crystal, proceeding out of the throne of God and out of the Lamb." Currently, there's nothing adorable, Pastor Panam. I think the earth is full of sickness, death, and I think this past week we have lost 2 pastors, if I'm not mistaken. Flowers at one point in time they bloom, and then the next thing they die. But then chapter 22 verse 1 is saying he saw a pure river of water of life, a clear crystal proceeding out of the throne of God. Heaven is full of life, and God is full of life. We are all invited to be part of Him, and to be part of God's soldiers and heaven when God comes to take us. Going back a little, chapter 21, we saw the 12 names, tribes written on the walls, and then the 12 names written on the foundation, which then represents the 144,000 which are going to be saved. But then the names above and below the gates encourage us that all humanity through the blood of Christ will be what? Will be saved. So the key 2 things that we ought to take away from this whole journey and what Christ requires of us. The reason why I summarized from day 1 up to day 8 is God has a great mission and a great purpose for us to take. Currently, I think I mentioned it during the week that the good part is, as Harare City East, we already were implementing what Christ requires of us. Every Sabbath we go out, we give reports on what we have carried out in various areas, our floods, our catchment areas, which is the Great Commission, and which is what Christ requires us to do each and every time. So we ought to continue the work, and as we continue the work, remember when I first mentioned that there is a provision that everyone is encouraged or can be part of heaven. As Pastor Montaka is coming up front to close for us in prayer, I think let's continue to pray for our efforts as Harare. Let's continue to let us be reminded that as Revelation 21 was saying, we should continue to put in the effort, and then there's a new heaven and a new earth that's awaiting us. And for us to be eligible, what we need to do is to continue preaching the work of the gospel and do as what God requires. Thank you.
Shall we pray? Our dear Father, I thank you for the holy ambassadors that will have your people a new event this afternoon, like people for allowing your ministers to share with us what we to do in order to reply. Thank you for the many blessings that you have given to all of us. In our own way, may you use us as your instruments of peace, instruments of healing, and instruments of reaching out to those whom you want to be in this new environment. Thank you so much for allowing us to listen to your word. Continue blessing and being with all of us. The words that we have heard, may we keep them in our minds so that honor and glory may remain unto you. For this we humbly pray in your everlasting name. Amen.